Hello and welcome to this special broadcast on WION. My name is Mohammed Saleh. With the American elections less than 4 days away, every word that is uttered by the candidates and those who are on the campaign team matters. And just as the election is going right down to the wire, Kamala Harris, the Democrat nominee, has been hit with a problem. And political commentators are calling it Kamala Harris's president and former president's problem. Now, Joe Biden's latest gaffe came this Tuesday when he reportedly called Trump supporters as garbage. Later, the White House issued a clarification, but by then, the damage had been done. Now, earlier, the former President Barack Obama was criticized for being patronizing and condescending towards black men for not voting for Kamala Harris. Now, both Joe Biden and Barack Obama should be firmly on the side of Kamala Harris, and everything that they do and everything that they say must be to help Kamala Harris. But inadvertently, are Joe Biden and Barack Obama actually damaging Kamala Harris's campaign? Now, to discuss this, we're joined by Ms. Theron Bond, who's a Democrat strategist, and she's joining us live on this broadcast. Ms. Bond, thank you very much indeed, ma'am, for taking time out and speaking to us here.
Yes, thank you.
So, Ms. Bond, let me in fact start off by asking you about this huge controversy that's spilled over the American election process this week, where Joe Biden reportedly, in a remark that he was making, ended up calling Donald Trump's supporters, that are the Republican voters, as garbage. How badly do you think this has affected the Democrat campaign?
Well, I don't think it's heavily affected Vice President Harris's campaign. I think it was just inappropriate to hear from a leader of that magnitude, and in this case, it's the sitting president of the United States. But he did do the right thing by clarifying what he meant by that in some form or fashion, apologizing for what he said. What we don't see, though, is when former President Donald Trump says things that are far worse than that, and they are not judged by the same standard. And he's been a former president and is currently running again for re-election himself. And so if we're going to say it's inappropriate for one person because they're the president now, it would certainly be inappropriate for someone who's been the president in the past and is seeking that office once again.
You know, it's interesting that you point out about some of the comments that have been made by Donald Trump. You're right. He has been very vitriolic towards the immigrants, especially. But the fact is, Joe Biden ended up calling the Republican voters, that's literally half the American population that will be voting in this election, as garbage. It's an unfortunate remark. Yes, the president apologized for it. But do you think, a lot of people are in fact saying that by saying what he did, Joe Biden is in fact gifted the next presidency to Donald Trump. Do you agree with that assessment?
I don't think so. I think while Joe Biden is the sitting president, he's not on the ballot this time. And so, yes, the things he said were inappropriate, but he won't be in any future office. And so right now, the two primary candidates on the ballot are former President Donald Trump and Vice President Harris. And then there's a litany of third-party candidates. So what we need to focus on are the people on the ballot. Which one of these folks is going to lead the United States into the future, because they get elected on November 5th and thus get inaugurated in January. Those are the people we need to focus on, those folks and who they're surrounding themselves with. Yes, there's some sort of allegiance of guilt by association, but ultimately it's those top two folks who should be focused on the words that are coming out of their mouths and their actions that follow suit.
You're right when you say that we need to be following the words that are coming out of the mouths of the two candidates in question here. But at this moment, Joe Biden, just to dwell on it a little bit more, he is the sitting president of the United States of America. But has he now become a bit of a liability for Kamala Harris's campaign? And do you think Kamala Harris's campaign would now ask Joe Biden not to utter anything till the day of the vote?
I think he was somewhat of a liability to her campaign based on some of his past policy points and things that he did or did not get accomplished during his presidency. And so some of those things are things that Vice President Harris has said she agrees with or, assumes some accountability for, but not all of them. And I think she should have done a better job at creating some distance between herself as the presidential candidate and Democratic nominee versus her appearance in the administration of the Biden-Harris administration. I think if she had distinguished herself a bit better, we would have a better idea of who she is outside of President Joe Biden. And so should he have made that comment that he did or make any other comments, then we would have a clearer idea of how similar or different they truly are.
You're a Democrat strategist, and it's interesting that you're saying that Kamala Harris should have created some amount of distance between her campaign and the presidency of Joe Biden. I want to draw your attention to a question that's been asked to Kamala Harris. Would she have done anything different from what Joe Biden has done in his 4 years of presidency? And in one of the interviews, she said that she can't think of a single thing that she would have done differently from what Joe Biden has done as the president. So effectively, she's pitched herself as a candidate who will continue with the presidency that could effectively look like 4 more years of Joe Biden. And you think that has been a bit of a handicap for her?
And, she said that, and then I think somewhere later in that conversation, she may have mentioned one thing, and I don't know that it was enough, to be honest with you. I think people were looking for her to truly distinguish herself from the Biden-Harris administration in what she did or did not do while she has been serving as vice president, juxtaposed to what she could do or would be willing to do if she is indeed elected president of the United States going forward. And so I think that's kind of what left a lot of people apathetic and uncommitted, was her proximity to Joe Biden and his policies while he's been president. And it's certainly going to affect turnout and results at the ballot box.
We also need to talk about the former President Barack Obama. There's been a lot of talk as to how Barack Obama, when he's talking especially to the black male voter, has been patronizing and condescending. Do you think this is something that Barack Obama realizes when he's talking to the black male voter, where he's saying that he gets a feeling that a lot of black men are perhaps not voting for Kamala Harris for a variety of different reasons, but the black men have got their specific issues on which they say Kamala Harris simply has got nothing to say to them?
I think he said the quiet part out loud. I think he said what needed to be said and what had been avoided in several other conversations. The reality is that black men, regardless of their party affiliation, have long been left out of the political discussion, yet the issues that impact everyone else truly do impact them, and they wanted to be able to see themselves in policies specific to them. And that's not something that we've seen a lot of from either candidate, to be honest. And so they put their money and their vote where their mouth is. They want to know who they should invest in for the next president of the United States. They want to see who best resonates with them and their families and how they envision their lives going forward. And so what former President Barack Obama did was say, look, we're running out of time. I know this is how you may feel. He, as a black man, can likely empathize with some of their thoughts and feelings around the political process. And he just had a direct conversation. And I think, honestly, conversation is where a lot of this starts, despite where you may affiliate politically. But conversations need to happen, and people need to be direct. They need to ask the questions and expect the answers, and then be able to make an informed decision going forward.
All right, we'll have to leave there. Thank you very much indeed, Ms. Theron, for taking the time out and speaking to us here on WION.
Thank you.
For all the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.